Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFK journey video. In this video I wanted to go over the top teams from my viewer's account for the Immortal Squad because I missed out on covering that yesterday because I was traveling, and so now I want to go over them and give you guys an idea of what teams you could expect to be good when it comes out on the global server. Okay, so let's switch over to the Immortal Squad, and just as like an idea, my viewer managed to get 85 billion damage and getting rank 11 in his district, so definitely a really good score with some of these teams. And just like in today's one, we kind of have the best team options for the Maulers. Now I want to try to do the same thing for the Immortal Squad. So in the Immortal Squad, you're allowed to use Scarlita, you're allowed to use Talene. However, the thing is, Scarlita was not really the most effective option. People were just using teams without her, and they ended up dealing better. So I want to show you the overall top score, which is 85.825 billion damage right here. This was the overall top performing formation. As you can see, all the damage is coming from Talene. But of course, the Ludovic healing is really important to keep Talene topped off. And Viperion as well also contributes decent amount of damage, but nothing amazing. And Sylvina kind of a little bit of damage as well. Thorin has the debuff, and he has his magic charms, which are both going to increase the damage that your team are going to deal onto the boss. So really, this team is all about Talene. If you have Talene built, you should be able to get a really good score for this first team. And with the arcane spell, because that seems like the best artifact, even in the Dauntless squad today, the arcane spell was doing even better than resonating spell. So magic damage dealer teams are usually going to be better with arcane spell for Ravaged Realm as of right now. So this is a pretty amazing team. Ludovic did a bit of damage from his HP per second damage, but as you can tell, it is nothing like Endless boss's levels. And then like, I guess you want the attack charms onto Talene, so Ludovic can be on the buff tile, but having your prime carrier hard damage dealer on the buff tile is a good option. Because it causes, well, actually, it causes the enemy to take 40% bonus damage from that hero, but if it's an HP per second damage dealer hero, that amount is fixed, and so probably, yeah, it's better for him not to be on the buff tile, like Smokey as well, for example. So Viperion, I guess, is the best choice. Sylvina seems not to be doing that much. And then team number 2 is kind of an even spread with the resonating spell, and you're going to have Carolina and Cecia on the buff tiles and Hodgkin off of the buff tile. One thing kind of interesting, well, I guess, yeah, the Cecia and Carolina did deal the most damage, so you want to have them on the buff tile instead of the other heroes here, and resonating spell onto the Carolina. All makes sense. Hodgkin did do quite a lot of damage. I think also his summons help you clear the enemies a bit quicker. So let's go ahead and take a look at the replay of this team number 2 to see what is actually happening. Yeah, so these summons of Hodgkin are going to allow him to clear them much more quickly. And then Hodgkin himself, I guess, deals pretty decent damage. And it's kind of because both of his summons have the same stats, like attack stats as Hodgkin, but they can only do normal attacks. But just from the normal attacks alone, a decent amount of damage is going to be coming out. The Cannon Fire ultimate of Hodgkin, because you're going to have only one target for most of the fight, which is the boss, is going to have multi-hits onto that boss, but it helps you clear those summons, the tentacles, really quickly, which is good, right? So Hodgkin seems like the best option for this team number 2. If you don't have Hodgkin built, then we can take a look at what other heroes could be used as an option. Because there are a lot of heroes not being used here. For example, Nero is not being used, Salazar is not being used. All of them could be decent options to try. Scarlita is also not being used. Yeah, so 34 billion damage with this team, but a lot of the damage came from the first team with Talene. I think the real difficulty is going to be figuring out a team that does well without Talene, because a lot of people will not have Talene as well. So I want to look through his records. Let's see, did he come up with any team testing without Talene? That's what I'm interested to see, but because he has Talene built up, I'm assuming that he was using Talene all the way throughout. Yeah, he's been using Talene all the way throughout. Okay, now let's take a look at the Immortal Squad limitations. These are the heroes which can basically be used. The top formation, oh yeah, Dunlinger can also be used, but again, Dunlinger is not going to be a great option to run here. And yeah, we can take a look at like all the heroes we have available, and to decide on the Graveborns. But yeah, it seems like Scarlita is not the best. If we even take a look at like some of the runs that he did with Scarlita, I want to see her damage potential. He did some later runs with Scarlita. Igor as well is not being used. Igor doesn't do much. Scarlita doesn't do much. And so they're not really adding anything to the team. And it's not like the previous season where Scarlita had a good seasonal skill to increase the damage of your team. This time Scarlita doesn't do anything for your team. It's all about her own damage, which is not good enough. Okay, so let's take a look at all the Graveborn heroes and come up with some other ideas if you don't have these heroes built. But it seems like Scarlita's not great, Dunlinger's not great, there are no mechanics which will make them a good option. I think Scarlita could be used if you don't have Talene built up, because Scarlita could help you maybe clear the tentacles. But not really, because it's really just one tentacle on each side at a time. So let's take a look at the Graveborn heroes. So the heroes which were not used here, Nara, Igor, Salazar, Nero, and that is pretty much it. So out of all of these heroes, none of them seem like they would be an upgrade for the teams that we've just kind of showed. The optimal team is definitely Talene on the first team with Ludovic. And then Viperion as your 2 damage dealers. The only thing I'm actually thinking about is, couldn't you just run Talene, Ludovic, and Viperion on this team number 2 as a 3-man team? And then on your team number 1, run like your full team of Hodgkin, maybe Thorin, Carolina, Cecia, and then your Sylvina, for example. Maybe that could be better. Not sure. But I think the Cecia Carolina team does really well on team number 2 as well. Salazar, I want to see, was there any testing done with the Salazar? Because I feel like Salazar could maybe have a place. He's a decent damage dealer option. Not like top tier, but a lot of people will have him built. Because like there are not that many A-level heroes to begin with in the Graveborn faction. So let's take a look at the Immortal Squad. So we have the Nero, some Nero team testing, and it came really close. Basically, he was running Nero instead of Sylvina, right? And Nero, does he have any beneficial charms? Oh, he gives an attack boost. Okay, and probably 1 attack boost for the Viperion. Okay, well, Nero should be in front of the Talene here, and this would probably do better, right? If you would have Nero and Ludovic both buffing up the attack of Viperion and Talene, that should do better. Thorin, I don't think Thorin needs to soul pack the Talene, because Talene is not really dying. She has the healing from Ludovic, and anyway, the Thorin soul pack would only just reduce the damage the boss deals, and I don't think by that much. Interesting that Tide Call spell was used here. Like, you wouldn't think it would be good, because Talene won't be recasting ultimate that much. But if you're going to run Tide Call spell, it should be in team number 1, where you are running a 5-man team, because then you have 5 different heroes who can cast ultimate to trigger the effect. Tide Call spell is good, especially also for pre-endless bosses. That bonus damage dealt is powerful. And the second team was being run with Greatsword, with Sylvina and Cecia and Hodgkin. But this also leads me to believe, like if for example you don't have Hodgkin, you could just run Carolina, like Cecia, Carolina, and Sylvina in this team for example, and it should still do fine. And if we take a look at some other teams here, was there any team testing? Igor we saw was just not looking very good. Because Igor just doesn't really do much, and you don't need the stall factor for your team. It's better just for the raw damage. So I think Igor is not a great option for you to choose unless you absolutely have no other options available. So some Arcane Spell, Verdant Spell, and then we had some Thorin team testing. Okay, we're going to watch a replay of the number 1 team. The interesting thing is I haven't seen a single test of Talene on the second team. I want to see how well Talene does on second team, and then all of your other damage dealers on the first team. Other than like Ludovic, Viperion can all be together with the Talene. But the other ones, if they were in the other team, that's what I want to see. Okay, so the overall top score was this one. Let's take a look at the Talene team and watch it in action and see. But I'm assuming that Talene will not actually get interrupted. Like, I think the healing from Ludovic should be enough to keep her permanently casting. And she can't get stunned, right? Because the boss is going to stun the furthest away ally on your team, which is going to be the Viperion here or the Ludovic. Let's see. So, no interruption of Talene, which is perfect. Viperion does get pulled in, but Viperion is also unaffected for a lot of the fight because of his abilities. Okay, their Talene does get stunned. That's kind of the problem. Yeah, that is a bit of the issue. And that will interrupt the damage flow. But there's probably no way to avoid that, right? Oh, and Viperion actually just gets nuked right there. And then from this point on, like, basically Talene keeps getting interrupted. I wonder, like, I guess the boss hits really hard. And so that's why Thorin Soul Pacting Talene might have been, like, a consideration to take the damage better. But even in this fight, Talene did so much damage just from the early stages of the fight. Sylvina hardly contributed anything. And her charms have no beneficial effect. Because what we have to look for right now is any charms that will have a good effect for the whole team. But I don't think anyone else will have that. Hodgkin charms. That just increases his own damage. Okay. So, I mean, definitely some interesting teams. Like, Talene is going to be the king of this Immortal Squad, in my opinion. And that's going to be clear. But for the other ones, and which team is Talene better on, Team 1 versus Team 2? That's the thing to consider. But I want to watch Team 2 again because it seems like, and I think people were saying that Team 2 is, like, the boss is not hitting as hard. Because Team 1, it looked like it completely destroyed the team. And so, if there is a difference, and, like, Team 2 is easier to survive in, then maybe, like, you could just have the Talene permanently casting here. But she would keep getting interrupted. Like, you would have the Viperion in the back, you'd have Ludovic in the back. But yeah, I do want to try that team, basically Talene, Ludovic, and Viperion. With Viperion and Talene on the buff tiles, with the Arcane spell, on this team number 2. That's what I would want to try. On team number 1, I would want to try all the big damages. Cecia, Carolina on the buff tiles. Hodgkin, Thorin, and then one final hero. Hodgkin, Thorin. And it would not be, you don't want frontline spell because in this boss you have backline damage dealers like Cecia and Carolina. So you would want to go either for the resonating spell or the greatsword spell. Sylvina just kind of doesn't do anything, right? And yeah, the survivability is much better for this other boss. Cecia is basically permanently able to cast. Also, because we keep killing the tentacles, do they count as a defeat that will power up our prime carriers? They probably do, I would think. But I don't know, greatsword spell, yeah. Okay, so I think these are pretty good teams. Nero for his charm buff, that's what I'm thinking is a good option. Ludovic for his charm buff, and then Thorin. Like, this seems like the optimal team to me. But I would have the Nero in front of the Talene. And not the Tide Call. I think I would just go for the Arcane spell. Just for the raw damage. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, guys, that is going to be pretty much it for this video. I just wanted to kind of recap what I missed for the Immortal Squad. These look to be some of the best teams. If we take a look at the ranking, the overall top team got 92.5 billion. And on this account, 86 almost billion. Which is really close. So it's basically... like, he's probably running what are considered to be the optimal teams. But I think we could try the Arcane spell on Team 2 with Talene, Ludovic, and Viperion, the 3 key damage dealers. And then on the other team, Cecia, Carolina, Hodgkin. If you don't have Hodgkin, I don't think it's a problem. You can replace him for some other hero, like maybe Salazar, Thorin, Euro type teams, or Sylvina instead of him. But if you don't have Talene, then you're going to suffer, because Talene is a big damage dealer contributor. The only thing I'm thinking is why maybe Talene is better on Team 1 is because that way you can have Ludovic, Viperion, Talene, and Thorin all in the same team. And you want Thorin because that increases the damage that the boss will receive from your team, further increasing Talene's damage. And because Talene is kind of like your hyper carry, you would prefer all the setup and debuffs on the team that has Talene as well. But I bet you could even do Thorin, Ludovic, Talene in one team and not even run the Viperion. But then you don't have another good hero on the prime carrier buff tile. So Viperion is good for that. So I think Viperion should be with Talene, with Ludovic, and then it just comes down to, is that going to be enough for team number 2? Or do you want to just run on Team 3 with the Thorin as well, and probably with the Nero as well, to give the attack charms? Seems like Tide Call is fine, but I don't feel like it will be the optimal. A frontline spell seems like not really to be working well in the Immortal Squad. I think it's just Arcane and Resonating, or Arcane and Greatsword that would be the best. But anyway, guys, you can let me know what your opinions on all of this are, or if you have heard of any other teams which are good. Yeah, because this is all important to know, because basically then we can begin planning our charms for these heroes when it comes out on global server. And once we have kind of like one rotation of all of these different squads of all the different factions, then I want to make an updated video on the most important charms to be crafting, because basically we know who the key damages are: Talene, Blast charms. The other key damages in this one are CC and Carolina, so you would want to get their charms. And then for the Dauntless squad, we know it's Seth and Shakir, so you want to give those charms. Shakir you should already have for Dream Realm, Seth. And then in the other team it's Elsa. So Elsa's charms, and then also Odie's Gale's charms. And then for the other ones, we're going to find out what is actually going to be the case. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll hopefully see you guys in the next video. And until then, everyone, peace out for now. And I'll see you next time.